Hi, this is Jacek, and in this PHP tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to create how to send file attachments with an email message. So to do that, we're going to be to demonstrate this and sort of show you how to do it, we're going to be creating this page here. So it's basically a file upload form, except that when you upload the file, click submit, it will send that file to an email address. So we've got this temporary email address inbox set up here, and this form is set up to email the file to this inbox. So to test this, let's just enter someone's name, Bob, and pick a file. So just pick any random file will do. Smaller the better really for testing, because you have to upload it. So clicking email file now. Nothing appears to happen because I didn't set this to show a message, but you could obviously do that. So going to the inbox now, hit reload, you can see that we have this new email that's arrived. It's just got a subject of a file, and it's from a file form, the file form even. So if we open this email up, you can see that we get some basic information about the file and who it was from, and we get the actual file itself just below, or also it's actually attached, so you can download it. So that's essentially what we're going to be creating. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all of this code, and then we'll get on with showing you how to make it. Okay, be right back. Right, so I've removed all of the PHP code from these files, and now we're going to get on with actually sort of going back and making this system again, that you can watch this time. So the first thing I want to do is very briefly explain the sort of file structure that we're using. So this send email file is the page that you saw. This is actually, it's this actual form, this page. Although at the moment it's just a standard form. This doesn't actually do anything. And then, this folder, this core folder, is going to contain like the back end sort of the site. So this file here will just contain, the form, the sort of display type code. So that will process the form result. It'll call a function that we're going to define, which will send the attached file. So in this core folder we have this init.inc.php file, and this file contains sort of everything that you want to have happen on all of the pages. So the idea is to save you having to just copy and paste code across. So say if you want to start the session and turn on output buffering or something, for example, you could have session start and OB start in this function, in this file. And then say if you want to disable, if you didn't need the session anymore, you could delete the session start line from this file, and you wouldn't have to go through all of the files deleting it. So this is just included at the top of every page. In this case it's just going to include a sort of back-end file, but I'm just including this to sort of show how to sort of lay out a site, or one way to lay out a site. I'm sure I can get loads of comments telling me I need to use MVC, but no. Anyway, so this inc folder is the next thing I want to talk about, and this folder contains any sort of back-end type files. So these files will just define functions, or if you want, classes. So in this case we're going to be using just one again, but like I said, it's just sort of for the purposes of example. In a live site you would have maybe 20 of these files doing various things. So if you like, just think about having sort of all of the ones from all of the tutorials in there. Like the blog tutorial, whatever the name of the back-end file was for dealing with sort of the posts and comments would also be in that folder. Anyway, that's a little bit above what I'm trying to talk about. So in this inc folder we have this single mail.inc.php file, and this file is just going to define a function that sends an email to an address with a file. That's basically it. So now that's explained, let's get on with the code. So just going back to the root, I'll just show you the three files, how they are at the moment. So I've got them open in my editor here. The first one is this page, which is at the moment just a HTML template, if you like, and then at the top there's just a space where we're going to do some PHP code. So all this is simply a text input that has the name because it's the person's name, a file input which has the name file because it's a file, and then a submit button which just has the value email file. So yeah, that's basically that. The init file is currently blank, as is the mail.inc.php file. So the first thing we're going to do is go to our send email page and include the init file. So just do that by using include, like so, and then the file name, which in this case is core/init.inc.php, except you spell inc right. There we go. and then we go to our init file, and then now that this is being included, we need to include this file. So this includes this, which then includes this. Seems a bit silly to do it like this at the moment, but you may have more of these. So this would include lots of these. It would be less pointless. So what this needs to do is first work out where it is. And we're going to do that using the file constant. And just to demonstrate, I will just do echo file. Oops, one of those. Just a quick note, this has 2 underscores either side of it, underscore, underscore, file, underscore, underscore. Just something that's come up quite a lot in the comments before, people not realizing and then it giving them errors. So that's just that. So now if we just go back to our browser and hit reload, you can see we get this text at the top. And this is the value of the file constant. What this is the full path on the server. So on my local testing server, this is the full path to the init file. And the good thing about this is that it always points to the file that you use it in. So say if your file is being included, it will still point to the actual file, instead of like the file that's doing the including, if that makes sense. So we can use this to get the full path to this core folder, which is the actual thing we need. So going back to our code, we can use the dir name function, and then just hit reload again. And you can see now that the file path, the file name portion of this path has been removed. So now what we have is the full path on the server to this core folder that I showed you a moment ago. And then we can use this to include the files, using their full path. The reason we do this is that, say you wanted to include this same init file from another directory, so say you had, in this folder, you had like a folder called admin, or something like that, which just sort of contained a different portion of the site. If you included the core folder, so you included like, I need a file, so say you included from the admin folder, like that would sort of break everything, because all of the file paths would then be wrong, because it would be trying to include something relative to the admin folder, not the root, if that makes sense. So that's why we use the dir name thing, file constant. Anyway, so what we want to do is store this in a variable, so we're just going to call it path and set it equal to that, not path, there we go. And we can use this to include the files, like so. So we need the path first, so just use the path variable in that string like that, and then from the core folder is just inc and then the file name, which is mail.inc.php, like so. So then the next thing we need to do is actually test this. So go back to, let's just go to our mail file and let's just do echo things. And then if we load our page now, you can see we get things, which means that this file has included this file, and then this has worked, and then it's included this. You don't really need to do that, but I just thought I'd do it just to show you that it's working. Anyway, so the next thing we want to do, now we've got this all working, is actually close this file because we don't need it. And then we're going to define the function which is going to send the file to the sort of email address. So what we're going to do is use the function keyword to define a new function, and this is going to be called mail file with no k. So essentially this is going to wrap around the existing PHP mail function, and it's just going to do a bit of work and then use the mail function. So the parameters we want this function to take are the email address we want to send the file to, the address we want to send it, we want it to appear to have been sent from, subject, oh dear, there we go, subject, the body, which is just going to be the message content, and then obviously the final one is going to be the file. So let's just do that, and just for okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to actually have this function send the file. The problem here is that this generally it just involves a lot of sort of technical awkwardness with headers, and what we need to do is basically just send those headers. So to find them out, what I did was go to Wikipedia and search a bit. So hopefully you'll be able to get the link to this in the description of this video. I'm not sure how that'll work, but anyway. So anyway, this is the Wikipedia page. And so this is essentially what we need to send as our message. So this bit at the top here is the sort of the main headers, similar to the ones we used in the previous video for HTML emails. And then the whole thing following that is a message split up into multiple parts, not just parts as in underlined or whatever. This is parts as in it's an actual technical email term. Multi-part messages, each part. So the part 1 would, for example, be the text, the main body of the message. Part 2 might be the actual file, and the email SERP client would detect that the part is a file, and that makes it an attachment. So what we do is we define this thing called a boundary, and then that is used to split up split up the email into its sort of various parts. So just going back to our code, let's do that first. Let's create a new string that we're going to use as a boundary. So going to our code, let's define a new variable. I'm going to call it boundary, and this is going to be equal to md5 of rand, like so. And what this will do is generate a random number and then take the md5 hash of it. The reason we use md5 is, I don't really know why. It can be any, I think it can be any string at all, but using md5 you get a standard length. I guess there's an advantage, and it's a bit longer. I don't know. It's less. I guess it's less likely to occur in the actual email. Anyway, yes, that's basically that. So now that we've defined our boundary, let's define the headers that we're going to send with the message. So the headers we're going to be defined in an array, as we did in the email tutorial. Sorry, the HTML tutorial. So we can define headers equal to a new array, and then each element of this array is going to be the well, it's going to be one of the headers that are going to go with the email. So if you go back, if we look at the Wikipedia page, the headers we need are these two. Whoops, these two. So that we need the MIME version as 1.0. No idea what that means, and the content type as this. So let's go back to our code and add these, basically type them out. So the first one is the MIME version, which is set to 1.0. Second one, we're going to use the, well, it is the content type header, and this is going to be set to multi-part, like that, /mixed, which means it's mixed type, which just means that each part is of a different type. So the first one is going to be, plain text. Second one is going to be something else, image/PNG, for example. And then after that, we need to do this, which just tells the client what the boundary is. Oh, okay. Because we need to use a variable in here, these need to be double quotes, and these need to be escaped. Just sort of forgot that. Anyway, and then in here we want to just use this boundary variable, like so. Final header we're going to be setting is the from header. Again, like I said, showed you in the first tutorial, you just need to set who the email was from. So from, and then the email address, which in this case just comes from something passed to this function, which is just from. So now we've defined our headers array, we can use these in the mail function. So what we're going to do now is just add the mail function call here. So who we want to send the email address to is just the to parameter, which again comes from what's passed into the function. Second one is the subject, comes from the same place. Next is the body, which we haven't defined yet, so I'm going to leave that kind of just blank, sort of placeholder. And then finally we need to send that list of headers. So we're going to use the implode function, to place a /r and a /n carriage return new line between each element of the headers array, and then return it as a string. And this is something I covered in the HTML tutorial as well, so I'm not going to go over that too much here.